Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Unified Proving Ground Circuit as we are getting into some hot and contested action here today as we got teams fighting it out with everything on the line for themselves. I'm Travesty. I am joined here with my analyst, as always, the ever so gracious Smats. And we have our first returning guest coming back to us, Osama. Welcome back, man.
Pleasure to be here, guys. Down for some more amateur action.
It's a good time, man. I'm really glad you're here. We got some really good games today as well.
I got one of the best games.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, hey, talking about the games that we have, Evil Genius Prodigies taking on Maryville. That's our game that we're getting into to start off, and then we have IMT AOE taking on Dare in the second game here on the Academy channel. It's going to be a fun day, gents.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of action today. And then on the other stream as well, we have 2 elimination games. All the teams today are fighting to get into that playoff bracket. 4 teams already there, 4 teams awaiting to see who their opponents will be. And those games are happening tomorrow as well. So it's just a crazy day for League of Legends.
Yeah, and these are elimination games. You know, the games playing here, it's for the last seed for playoffs, so it's do or die for these teams. First game is Maryville versus EG Prodigies. Honestly, these teams probably should have been playing for first in their group, but you gotta just, you know, you're here on this day, and may the better team win.
As Fruit for Thought told us, you don't want to cross Taco Gaming on a Tuesday. And unfortunately, these teams had crossed him on a Tuesday. So, that being said, I do want to take a moment to look at how the bracket is going to look going forward, too. Because you guys pointed out the fact this is elimination. First seed's already decided. Whoever wins this first match here between Maryville and Taco does end up in a spot against 100 Thieves Nets, who got first seed out of their group. That's going to be a very fun show. It's tough.
I don't want to sugarcoat that. That's a tough first draw for the playoffs or whatever team actually makes it there. But there is a pretty big difference regardless. The difference between losing today and losing tomorrow, even if you do lose tomorrow, is Proving Grounds points. And you actually do really need those to get into the main event later on in the spring. So no matter which team you lose to, or if you win all the way and take the upset against 100 Thieves next, definitely important to keep moving on in this tournament.
I want to get those points, start gathering them up, building them up, and I do want to go ahead and highlight the matchups that we have going on through both streams here today. So you can see over on the Unified Live, it is No Team versus Radiance, and then you do see Wildcard taking on Bay State. While over here on the Academy channel, we will have Dare Gaming and Immortals AOE coming in as our second match, and then Maryville versus EG Prodigies, which is going to be our first match here. And I gotta say, very, very excited to see what is going to happen here between these two squads, especially when we talk about Maryville and Evil Genius Prodigies. And I'm going to start it off just by talking about these two squads. Osama, you already jumped onto the fact that this is a squad full of 2 teams that look like they could have been the first seed. Very easily so. On paper, it makes perfect sense. But we look at the rosters here, there's a difference in experience between the two, Osama.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying beforehand is Maryville is kind of like, you know, the experience, the collegiate team. They've done well in collegiate for as far as I can remember. So, you know, they seem to have a system in place. Shady's still there. Niles is back from his LCS adventure. Odd Orange. And then you look at EG Prodigies, and it's a bunch of rookies, and they're here to, you know, try to make some noise for themselves. Obviously, like the seedings, they're gonna have to play 100 Thieves next if they win this. But, you know, as an amateur player, these are the types of situations that at least personally I would like to be in, because, you know, you get to show up, you get to prove your worth. And from what I heard, the top lane matchup in specific is probably something to look at, because Faisal is you know, one of the better performing top laners, not just in his team but the whole tournament. And he's playing against an experienced player like Niles, so they both play GP, they share some of the same champions, and it's just something I want to look at in specific is the top lane matchup. I want to see maybe does Niles just like put him in the dirt with his LCS experience, or maybe this is a new rookie that's about to start making some noise for himself. So
Right.
I'm excited for this game. It's it's kind of like the experience versus the rookies, and I mean I played on a team with some young bloods back when I was on 100 Thieves Next. Sometimes they put out some work, and you don't expect the stuff they could do. So I'm just excited for this matchup.
Yeah. I mean, all those guys are in Academy. Wait. Oh, no. Tenacity's in
Some
LCS
of them
now,
LCS,
too.
bro. Some,
Yeah,
some of them have surpassed me for wherever I've gone. God's playing LCS, Tenacity, man.
Man.
Zoomed on ahead.
Play with Core JJ, dude. Oh, that's some crazy stuff. Back in the day, man, that's a good throwback. Yeah, you mentioned that both these top laners play Gangplank. They don't just play Gangplank, they destroy people on Gangplank. Faisal had a game where he went 14-0 on this champion just a couple of weeks ago, and Niles, of course, a perennial Gangplank player. He's also had some really crazy games on this. These two players are going to be super exciting, not just in their individual laning matchup, but also in the rest of the team fight. And like you said, Faisal has been one of the premier team fighters in the entire tournament. I pulled some stats from Oracle's Elixir. He's in the top 5 of all players in the tournament for kill participation. That's as a top laner. That's really difficult to do as in that role. He's also number 1 for kill share on his team, which means he is the player who gets the most kills in relation to the rest of his players. That's insane. That's so gross from a top laner
especially
as well.
a top laner. It's,
Yeah,
it's kind of
you're on an island up there.
Yeah, so really exciting there.
Talking about the excitement that's there too. I mean, these are two squads. I have to bring up it might be a little bit of a sore subject between these two teams, but they have a mutual enemy, and Taco Tuesday was the team that took them down. Taco Gaming was able to conquer them, and they both lost in interesting ways against these two. Smats, if you would, I believe you were talking about before we got started about how these teams ended up losing versus Taco.
Yeah, so they both lost to the same team, and I feel they both lost in a very similar way. And it was in the late game, Taco Gaming just had really solid team fighting, and more importantly, team fighting coordination. I think they were all on the same page a lot better than these two squads. Now, that was 1 week ago in Maryville's case and 2 weeks ago in Evil Genius's case. So that's definitely something that I would imagine they have looked a lot better at, and it looked to try to coordinate better moving into this matchup, especially if they acknowledge the same thing that I did, that they lost in the same way. If they can get better at that in the middle of these team fights, then I think they will have a much easier time progressing through this tournament. But that's definitely a weakness that both squads had. Especially the big moment was for Maryville, where they were really heavily winning, and we saw in the Grapes video that they just gave over a quadra kill to Lynx on this Ezreal, and that just completely blew it up. So they definitely need to get that in order for this match.
Yeah, that wasn't even just a quadra, man. He got a pentakill inside of his game, and it was just like, yo, this dude is insane. First pentakill that we got to see actually pop out inside that Maryville match. So it was great to be able to see. Very much so, hype well deserved from them, but it shows these squads, they have some holes to poke into them. Osama, you have quite a bit of competitive history here. How does it feel in those kind of matchups when you do find yourself in that situation where you are in a similar situation against another team that has kind of the same strengths and weaknesses as you?
I would hope that they both went into their week of practice with a goal in mind. Obviously, it's not like too hard to find out your weaknesses as a team. It's just more about when you're doing practice and scrimming, you're actually drilling in those issues. So you wake up on the day, you got to hope that your practice goes into work, or honestly, sometimes it just goes crazy in these games and just all the fundamentals go out the room and it's just blow for blow. So honestly, I think that's kind of what might happen here with the pressure on the line with a squad of rookies. Like sometimes you just make it crazy and the enemy team doesn't know what to do. So honestly, I'm kind of hoping for that. I'm kind of hoping for some bigger games. Either way, I just hope the games deliver.
Yeah. Well, something that does and sometimes doesn't deliver. It depends on what side you're on. It's the caster predictions. Okay, this is where we get to talk about where people's minds are at. Wow, that's a lot of NFT.
Yeah, well, first of all, we got to acknowledge the big brain in the room. That's Big Brain Boulevard here in first place. Congratulations to him, still keeping that one alive. I always believed in you, buddy. Definitely a risky move to not go for no team in this first match, I will say. I definitely don't agree with Beatdown's assessment in this one. Ooh. I'm gonna agree with Hawk over there on the left and also Orbital. And oh no, actually those guys have different ones. It's RMC and Orbital that have the same prediction as me. I'm with those guys.
Well, I would say I would be with somebody here, but unfortunately nobody went with Dare. My heart still speaks for them, So I can't agree with anybody here. Also, we still have the trend of play-by-plays having better predictions than their color casters. The only color caster that's actually up there right now is Beatdown. Rebel's got some nice points for himself as well, but yeah, it's the play-by-plays, giga-minding, the predictions, right behind Big Brain Boulevard. Just want to bring that up. Our play-by-plays, we got to stick together in this. We don't win the caster showdowns, but in predictions. But with that being said, guys, we got our matchup coming up here between Evil Genius Prodigies and Maryville. We've talked about the different team fights and whatnot. Is there anybody in particular, besides this top lane, we've already jumped into the top lane. Is there anybody else in particular that you guys are keeping your eyes out for going into this game?
Yeah, I think the most interesting meta-defining player from Maryville right now is Getback, because on this squad, he is playing the enabling mid laners like the Twisted Fate and the Orianna as well. Nobody else in the entire tournament is playing Twisted Fate, and my feelings about that aside, I think this does actually have a really interesting impact that allows Maryville to have some stronger early game macro points than other teams would, because you do have that Destiny. You can access the other lanes with the gold card a lot earlier, and that alongside with the Gangplank is really showing us that Maryville are, they're sad about the TP change, man. They want to go back to bot lane regardless of whether or not that's nerfed. They're picking the Twisted Fate, they're picking the Gangplank just so they can affect Azog and Shady's lane, and more specifically, let Shady leave that lane to go somewhere else after they have that advantage, which I really appreciate in their gameplay in the early game.
Yeah, and I would think for me as well, I think Odd Orange with Niles, at least I've played solo queue against that duo combo.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
They make it unplayable sometimes for the enemy top laner, or sometimes they make it unplayable for themselves. But I'm down to see how Perry and Odd Orange go as well. So honestly, maybe it's a more of a topside focus type of series this matchup, but. Honestly, Shady, like you said, he loves to roam around the map. I play against him a lot, and I played against him as an AD and a support, and he's always gone. So, it's a really interesting matchup, and I just want to get in the games.
Yeah. Actually, did you play against him in solo queue when he was like back in old Fiddlesticks days when he was spamming that champion?
Yeah, I've been playing since season 2, so.
That was the most annoying shit. Oh, okay, sorry.
It happened!
I did not slip up first. Oh my god. Got the pressure off me now.
I'm sorry. I played Rakan, and that was like the direct champion to counter Rakan. It was awful. Like he'd throw the crow at you, and then you dash to your ally, and then it would just bounce between you two. That was the worst.
I remember that.
Oh no. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
it's alright, the PTSD flares up.
He's played Pyke a good bit. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I mean, they could bring out a lot of different stuff. I know he used to play Heimer. I mean, dude, Shady plays like a lot of different types of lanes. I wouldn't be surprised if they just whip out Karthus Pike or something. I'm not sure if that's still a thing. It was a thing back when I was playing.
Yep.
I don't know. There's a lot of different champs being played now. Obviously, that's a good job by Riot. They've kind of like expanded the pro play pool. So, yeah, I'm doubted to see what type of comps these teams pick out.
And speaking on that point too, I do want to bring up the fact that we're on 12.1 still, right? Like there's a lot of the champions. These players have had more time than I believe in any amateur tournament that we've really been able to have in the past, just because of the fact that they've been able to sit on this patch, to be able to actually learn the champions, learn the meta, and get to see how everybody is playing differently inside of this meta. That does mean things like Chemtech is still inside of 12.1. So we do have the Chemtech Drake. That is something that is still here, but the different champions like the Akali that Smats has been ever so excited about whenever we've seen it. There's all these different answers that have been coming into the game, and we get to see these players constantly solve it. Is there anything that you guys are looking at that has possibly came in here long term that you think will have an impact inside of this, or will not be seen inside this series?
Well, first of all, on 12.2 did just play an ARAM on Chemtank Akali, and it's still pretty good. So for all the people who are concerned about this build, it's gone. It's still here. Don't worry. It's just a little bit worse. They can't hold us down. I
wish.
The roaming champions for Shady are really interesting because it doesn't feel like Daption is super comfortable with the new support shakeup quite yet. He spent a lot of time on Wildcard playing things that enabled Arrow, but not really necessarily the enchanters. It was more around like the Thresh, Nautilus, and the Rel especially. He was really good at Rel. Those champions they're still here, but they've sort of been ousted by the enchanters with the new glacial. Things like the Janna are really strong, Lulu as well, Karma. It doesn't really feel like he's fit into that meta quite yet. And I think with Shady's roam style, if he wants to go for that, you can really exploit an uncomfortable enchanter player with those champions that when Daption goes for a ward, very easy to just kill him. So I think that's something to watch out for in the meta for these games for sure.
How about you, Osama? How are you feeling? 12.1, we're still here on it.
Hey, I've been playing some off-season solo queue, and man, I just personally wish it wasn't like Lux, Lulu, Yuumi meta. So, hey, I'm all for any champions they want to pick. Just personally, I don't want to see Yuumi. That's like the one champ. Like, please, just get it banned. Like, it's not even like an unpopular opinion. I'm pretty sure 99% of players are gonna agree with me here. Like, Yuumi just needs to just not be in the game, and I'll have an enjoyable experience.
So, with that being said, I do want to bring up, what are you guys feeling? What is our viewers feeling here? You can let us know by going onto Twitter and using the hashtag #WeAreUnified. Let us know your thoughts. Do you agree? Are you a part of the 90% that don't want Yuumi inside of the game? Do you want more Pike? Let us know using #WeAreUnified. Ask your questions, put out your tweets, put out your messages, and your tweet could show up on the Twitch channel here on the Academy channel. So, make sure you go on there and use it. Yet again, hashtag #WeAreUnified. And also, let us know what you're thinking inside the game. Or I'm not going to ask about gamer snacks this time. I learned my lesson from the last time. I still haven't forgotten about your pickle nonsense, man. We're still gonna have you answer for that. Listen, I maybe I'll explain. I'll put out a video on it.
Yeah, I feel
sometime.
like I'm missing something here, but
He said that his favorite gamer snack was pickles. How are you gonna eat pickles while playing a game?
oh, I mean, it can't be your favorite, but I mean, pickles
That's
do
what-
smack, but it
Yeah,
just
see,
can't be.
Okay.
it does.
Oh, I missed
look,
it. I could have said I had an easy pun there, whatever. Oh,
You can always
man.
go back.
Yeah, we can always run it back. I'll run it back for a good pun.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. We deleted the last 15 seconds of footage.
Nah, I mean, gamer snack. Oh, I mean, nah, we don't have to dive into gamer snacks here. We're talking about League of Legends, so that'll go off topic.
Stay hydrated, gamers. Water is the best snack.
Stay hydrated.
That is a
Yes.
good snack. With that being said, we're going to take ourselves a little bit of a hydration break. We are going to take ourselves a short little break as we're going to get hydrated up, gamers. And when we come back, we're going to be getting into Evil Geniuses Prodigies taking on Maryville. So do not touch that browser.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, but this time to the caster desk. My name's Dia. I am joined by Rudude, and as our desk has set us up for Rudude, we're about to be covering EG Prodigies versus Maryville, one of the matchups that I've been looking forward to for a very, very long time, and it's mainly because of the way that all these players are going to interact, especially with the volatility in the top side.
There really is. We've got previous LCS experience on one side and we've got this new up-and-comer on the other, so it is going to be that battle of experience versus raw untapped talent to see who can come away with the slight advantages there. So I'm hoping to see some great stuff out of them. Both of these teams, just in general, a lot of story between the two of them. Obviously, Maryville have been the top of Collegiate, were dethroned last season, but have been an incredibly present threat in Collegiate throughout the last couple of seasons. EGP have got one of the best amateur programs out there. They're doing incredible work as well, developing the new talent. So both of these squads coming in should be very exciting to see what they can come in for. And quickly, as Smacks mentioned here, MU, the team all about Twisted Fate, they're not going to get their hands on it in game number 1.
No, already taken away, and these teams are going to have to give this one their all, because only one of them will get the opportunity to maybe, just maybe, get their revenge on Taco Gaming, the ones that have put them here in the first place, here in the lower bracket, where one of these teams will not get the chance to move on to those playoffs. You and I were talking up some of the players earlier, of course, and it is going to be heavily reliant on these guys individually throughout the early game to create their own advantages, because we both know those small advantages can matter a lot when both these teams get to where they're comfortable with in the form of those team fights.
And I'm hoping to see some strong death ball compositions, honestly, by either side. Azog and Sketch, two incredibly well-versed team fight AD carries, particularly when we see two ADCs already hitting the ban table as well. Certainly going to be putting a little bit more restraint on that champion pool. Twisted Fate taking away Corky as well. Victor priority sort of shoots up a little bit here when you have those two taken away. Potential that EGP taken away, or MU may just have to expect that to be the first pick. But Lee Sin taken away from Orange, again a very staple ban up against this jungler. Is a very proactive, aggressive early game player, so getting that one off the board early on certainly makes a lot of sense. And with the Ezreal still open, we've still got Jin as well as an answer. We've got 3 ADC bans already, dear. We're going to see potentially one of those trades come through.
I'm surprised that we're even seeing Xin Zhao hover, and a lock-in more so as well, because you were talking about the ADCs and because you were talking about the Victor, two incredibly high priorities, but the Xin Zhao ends up surpassing all of that. Now I think, yeah, considering the Akali, it makes sense that you're grabbing this, because that's also incredibly high priority. You get to answer back the Xin Zhao with the Jarvan, and the ball's back in EGP's court.
Exactly. This is just a good trade of junglers, and honestly, I love that Maryville have got their hands on Akali here. Sort of slipped through my head as a potential pickup, because we've been still on 12.1 here. This isn't nerfed Turbo Chem Tank. This is still going to be full obnoxious bruiser Akali that can one-shot AD carries regardless. Now EGP, looking forward, they're going to have to try and find an answer to this, be it top lane, be it mid lane, and likely try and pick up something around their bot lane as well. There's the EGP top lane. It's going to be Renekton here as the answer. So a little bit of early on skirmishing should be able to win out in that laning phase and bully the Akali a little bit early on. But this is the power of taking it on. Red side here is that Maryville can still put this in Get Back's hands, and if they see a good mid matchup on R5, they can more than happily swap it around.
Yeah, I'd like to see some adaptations come through here, especially because with the Renekton being able to straight up win a lane, and with the champion flexibility of both Get Back and Nals, Maryville, like you're talking about, have the options, and as do EGP, both playing around that with extreme caution. The Rakan ending up being locked in, I think, is a great pivot from EGP, because it takes this topside focus that they've had during the draft and starts to shift it a little bit more southerly.
It also opens up for them to double down on that as well here. I want to say Rakan, an excellent roaming champion, and Daption as well, a player that is very well versed at trying to get out of his laning phase. Obviously, last split having played with Arrow, has been more than capable at leaving a player of his caliber on his own and getting those roams out and about. Sketch going to be potentially left a little bit isolated here. But the Kai'Sa AD carry coming through. This is not what I was expecting, but Azog taking the dive composition from Maryville to a whole new level right here. They're sort of doubling, tripling down even on on that Akali and Jarvan are a good dive duo, but now you've got that Akali in there. You are going all out, and things like the Galio as well in this second phase for Maryville fits the sort of realm of Twisted Fate and also pairs so nicely with the Jarvan.
The ban on the Xayah as well just makes this an incredibly difficult position for Sketch Dreams, an AD carry that we are going to keep our eyes on. Sketch on EGP has been a really big part of their success, and with his ability to skirmish quite well, now potentially being taken away by 3 different champions that are going to jump on top of him, they are putting the screws to him, and a phrase that I think I'll probably be using a lot tonight when referencing Maryville.
Yeah, they're certainly diving, hoping to find Sketch. He still has that Ezreal open and available, and I think that is something that expect to see him pick up. This Tristana ban may not have seemed like we've seen Tristana a lot prevalently in the meta. It's very good versus Jarvan. You can get out of that Cataclysm, but also Sketch has an insane Tristana win ratio across amateur. Coming into last season, at some point he was 12-0, 12-1 on the Tristana in his competitive games in the amateur space, so this is an incredibly well-versed ban to put on the table for him. Thresh coming through as, again, just another source into the backline and potentially disengage as well should they need it.
I'm concerned about the Ziggs. The hover and the likely lock-in here does put you, yes, in a place where you can hold down the fort bot lane, but ultimately doesn't answer a whole lot of the dive in the way that you would have expected an AD carry to be able to at this point in the draft. The Syndra being considered as well for EGP does put them in a place where they'd much rather be going forward than dealing with what Maryville have to do to them.
Yeah, 2 immobile-esque mages if this Syndra gets locked in. Ziggs does have that satchel, and you can do some nice counterplay around the Jarvan Cataclysm with that, opening up a double flex pick as well. That Syndra can be locked into the bot lane. Ziggs can also go into the mid lane if you find that matchup a little bit more appropriate. And now we get to see what Maryville's final pick is. Remember, they've still got this option to take things into the top lane, like the Aurelia, the Akali as well can be flexed back into the mid lane if they so desire. Plenty of options open to Maryville, and any form of counter to the Syndra. We'll have to see what's open. Things like the Echo that we've seen from Taco Gaming specifically are also open. And dear,
oh yeah! Game 1, baby! We are getting the gangplank! I didn't think we were going to see this the entire series. You and I were talking about it during the desk. I was like, yeah, no way that gets picked up. It's going to be banned away. It's going to be taken by something, but holy moly, making it through all the way to R5. Niles is really throwing down the gauntlet in this top side, and against the Renekton, it's the perfect flex of champions.
Exactly. They take that Akali into the mid lane, as we mentioned. GP for Niles, one of his classic pickups from before he was even in the LCS. He's going to be looking to style on this Renekton as well. And the reason you say that we didn't expect to see either of the players get their hands on it is not because they're bad, it's because we both know that they are so good on this GP. Faisal has got the highest kill share on his team out of any top laner. I think he's top 5 in the entire league, because of an incredibly skewed GP game that he got to play last week. Niles, obviously a very storied GP player as well. The fact that either one of them get their hands on this one is an absolute miracle, and that Niles pulls it out in game number 1. This is a pick that we were expecting to see high presence on, and I'm glad we're not disappointed.
I am terrified of Maryville. I thought up to that R5 they had a really good draft as well, but with the Gangplank now having even more damage and backline access that is kind of inherent to Gangplank even from a range, EGP have a lot to be worried about, and I want to see if we can walk through the tools that EGP have to turn this fight themselves, to turn not just those late game fights, but the skirmishes in between and leading up to where their lane advantages might be, because right now it's feeling very Maryville centric this game.
So the good thing then for EGP, that Ziggs should have push in bot lane versus the Kai'Sa Syndra as well early on. We'll probably be able to bully out the Akali. And Renekton versus GP, we're going to have to wait and see how that matchup goes, because traditionally, right, Renekton, a very strong laner, but GP's level 1 kind of unparalleled, so it depends how much punishment Niles can get down during that phase. But EGP have got a few tools early on to make things happen. The Akali, the Kai'Sa, generically a little bit weaker. And I also think that with this really dive-centric comp that Maryville have got, Rakan may actually find a lot easier of a time, because you don't have to use that grand entrance as a form of engage here. If 5 people are dashing into you, getting a 5-man quickness becomes incredibly easy, because you can dash between your own team, shield them up, and get those charms going to provide that source of peel as well. You've got things like the Crescent Guard as well from Zins out to just knock people away. They do have these slightly adverse tools, ones that we traditionally see used as engage, but up against this Maryville composition, you've got every option to just go, you know what, we can use it for an engage and catch Maryville off guard, because they also don't go back too tremendously. But equally, if they're going to be jumping on us, we've got every chance to just hold them up, slow their assault, and kill them in that process.
There's a lot of focus being put on Daption here, especially when you talked about that counter engage, though, with the Charm being the biggest disruptor on this squad, with both Daption and I'm going to say Faisal having a lot of pressure in different ways as well. Daption more so focused on the team fight, and Faisal very much focused on the lane, and even the impact in those later game team fights as well, as he is one of those champions that you and I were talking about all of last week, where flanks become so ridiculously important. Here, it can change the game. Maryville will have an incredibly easy time picking you apart if you are isolated and not pulling off the flank at the same time as your team would like to engage.
No, and I think that looking at this game sort of from a broader perspective and maybe dialing in a little bit onto this mid lane matchup that I want to touch on quickly, that coming into this tournament as well, I want to harp on that we'd sort of established, I think, that most people were, okay, Insanity, Ryoma, they're our top two mid laners for the entirety of this event. I'm very high on Get Back right now. Coming into the tournament, hadn't any tape, but this guy coming across from OS. Obviously, we've got a lot of OS players in North America that are doing very well for themselves. Fudge and FBI, to name a couple. I think that Get Back, for me, has cemented himself in the early game as one of the top three to fill out that role in the mid lane in this event. Has been playing the early games incredibly well, always seems to be at the right place at the right time, and his skirmishing is incredible through those early stages. So on this Akali now, a champion with a little bit less agency, my eyes are particularly on him to see what he can do to sort of live up to my mantle right now.
Yeah, this is going to be a difficult matchup to navigate, especially in what you already identified as his strength. But later on, we get to see a different side of Get Back and potentially get impressed there as well. A nice hook landing from Shady early on and a bit of damage pumped into Daption. But we're not going to get a whole lot of action there. Instead, the game is going to be played through information earlier on as both junglers try and scout each other out towards the top side. And I want to see where these guys end up starting. Whether they try and get a odd beginning. What's up?
They see this ward go down here, Azog, and immediately Orange with his sweeper, charging forward to try and hit it, and the defense from EGP, this is so interesting to see early on. Literally level 1, battling for vision here. They saw Orange walk his way through the mid lane, so it means that Perry's able to walk on up, get a ward down on the Jarvan's Raptors. This trade of information here completely in favor of EGP, and they're going to know pretty much where Orange is starting, where on the other side, yes, there is a leash occurring for the EGP jungler, but they may not have the complete information.
And as of right now, Daption and Sketch should at least have an idea that inside of this brush, Azog and Shitty could be, but they don't spot it out just yet. And again, Daption does take a relatively large chunk being put right back under the tower. This is going to hamper the laning potential of the Ziggs Rakan early on, but likely won't result in their deaths.
If we get Gleaming Quill from Daption, potentially try and poke out a little bit and get that healing going, he should be okay. Obviously, has 2 potions to burn through as well. But that hook itself could just set up Azog and Shady for a very good laning phase to sort of mitigate, as you mentioned, what could have been a fairly difficult one. Shady hitting level 2, they should be fine to have already walked away, get that respect down. But look at your junglers once again here. It's Odd Orange patting his way down to the bot side. This wave, they're going to have another one collected, and there's a very real possibility that we get a dive attempt come through as well early on. I can already tell that Perry, working his way up toward the top side, going to be trying to help out Faisal against this GP matchup.
It's already likely a difficult one, as we haven't had the chance to check it out too much just yet, but like you talked about, that Gangplank early level, extremely difficult to deal with, especially as a melee champion. Now, Perry did get the chance to ping out for his team where he suspected that Odd Orange was going. I believe they got it confirmed ever so slightly by the word right next door to the Raptors. So EGP, with this continued information advantage, are, I would say, winning in a very small way the early game, simply because they're the ones that have more decisions available to them, whereas Odd Orange, being constantly tracked, isn't really coming up with anything he can do.
Now, pathing down to this bot side when they're obviously forcing it under the turret does mean that you'd have to go for a dive, or you're sort of shadowing. He's now matched this top side presence. Shady also taking a reset off of a crashed wave. We heard it on the desk. Osama mentioned it himself, that Shady, he gets out on the map. It doesn't matter where he's playing, what he's doing. He wants to be out and about, making impact plays happen. He's been spotted on a ward on top side, and from Maryville's perspective as well, this is something that coming into our entire prep for Maryville, we'd said, Shady will roam. Whoever the AD carry is, be it Evan, be it Azog, they need to be comfortable with taking a backseat in the bot lane. And it looks like that is going to be absolutely no different now that we've got Azog in for this game at the very least as well. Already roaming around, looking to make some plays. The boots tier 1 already in the back pocket.
And if you're a Maryville fan, this is something that you have come to recognize about Azog as well, and the way that Maryville likes to play around him. He is a little bit more reserved than Evan, their other option for AD carries that you'll occasionally see take to the stage. And with Azog able to sit back, and I would say a little bit more comfortably, get time for his support to roam, this is the kind of play that is being enabled, and Niles having a perfectly good time up in this top side on the gangplank is the one that ultimately benefits from it.
Getting just that little bit of presence from his support, as you mentioned, is exactly the reason that he's able to benefit from this situation. Can feel comfortable pushing out this lane, doesn't really have any vision, but he knows that that support from the team came through earlier, and then just with general timings of the junglers, Perry shouldn't be up here, should be on his second clear from bot to top lane, and as he's about to start pathing into the top side, he takes that reset, gets himself out of harm's way, particularly with no vision as well. So going forward, Drake obviously just spawned, could be taken by both of these junglers without too much help, but you have to look at the presence, the priority of each lane, get back kind of starting to stack up and push through. And now obviously with your mid laners looking to roam, it is Orange now that starts it up.
It's a little bit risky to do so with the mid lane being pushed in. Maryville in a position where they could be made to pay for that. We saw Small engage towards this tri-brush where Sketch and Daption were able to play around the safety of their tower, and it ends up being a net neutral. Odd Orange doesn't go for the dragon, Perry doesn't have to worry about it, and both of them retreat back to their own jungles to farm up. In an increasingly tense early game, no real objective advantage going to be found just yet, because both these teams are crucially playing with respect. The analyst desk pointed out they are so similar to each other, and here is where it really matters.
And at this point, EGP have actually got a really nice advantage in the mid lane. I want to quickly point this out because I touched on it being the sort of matchup that I was interested in. Get Back hasn't managed to find a recall timer. Leo has. He's expended his TP, but that's already cycling its way back down. They're going to be using this mid lane to hopefully facilitate some plays around Summoner's Rift, because Leo should be able to push in every single wave reliably. Get Back hasn't found a chance to go back, and as such has item advantage. Perry
Niles has flash, ends up using the orange quite early though, and can get knocked up underneath the tower. A second and even a third tower shot will return the kill right back onto Perry, as his very first gank of the game does result in both his and the enemy laner's death.
That's still worthwhile though for EGP. Obviously Maryville unfortunately have Odd Orange just on a reset, can't make his way down into, for example, the bot side of Perry's jungle. And I will always say, when you're taking a trade of laner for jungler, it always benefits the team that loses their jungler, because it's so much more difficult to get those exchanged resources. Now Niles obviously getting that knock up, and look at the damage he pumps out in a second. Trial by fire into a parlay, into 3 turret shots in the cannon barrage. It's a lot of damage in an instant, and unfortunately it does catch Perry out, but once again still going to be an overall beneficial play to the EGP squad.
Niles gets to use his teleport, returning right back to the lane, continuing with the momentum that he had earlier and the confidence that he had earlier as well. Like you talked about, perhaps a little bit dissuaded, but nonetheless relatively stable up in this top side, as Maryville expect of him. With Sketch naturally holding things down bot lane, the attention is starting to shift a little bit more towards this Rift Herald, as we're only 15 seconds away from the very next objective spawning on the Rift.
And already both supports up in this top side of the river. Looks like Maryville with a little bit more pairing, and obviously with Perry in his Raptors right now, does give Maryville this opportunity to close out some vision, secure themselves the Scuttle Crab, and a little bit of priority around the top side Rift Herald. Perry now pathing his way through mid lane to stake their intention, but no vision.
Whoa, we are just walking into that, and Crescent Guard buys time, but will it be enough? Perry still trying desperately to get out, will not be able to make it as the perfect execution takes Get Back right out of Sketch's area of effect, and ultimately ends up spelling the death of Niles, as some very nice CC hitting in the mid lane means that trade goes relatively evenly for EGP, despite their early, what I'll call missteps, face checking a brush.
They also get priority on the mid lane push as well, which gives them first roam to whatever objective they may look to take. Unfortunately, having lost Perry, it means that going to that Herald is very difficult, but we do get a little bit of a replay on how all of this began. And you can see no vision in this top side because of that priority that Maryville had set up first, and that Perry was in his bot side jungle. He does just get blown up here. Yes, you've got that ulti, but it's not quite enough. And then, just when you think this is fine, a good hook hits onto Sketch, but then Niall steps a little too far forward and takes a brunt of Syndra damage. The Ignite actually from Daption stops that orange healing being too impactful and actually gives the 1-for-1 trade. So just a slight misstep stops that from being a net positive for Maryville.
A lot of unexpected burst from that unleashed power, and assist going over to Leo at the end of it. Keeps EGP totally comfortable so far. Again, these teams basically dead even right now, but with Maryville continuing to apply the pressure and more importantly, getting that first move onto the Rift Herald up topside, I'm surprised they didn't end up walking away with it, as it looks like EGP are actually the ones that ultimately are going to get the objective.
Okay, so Leo not all using his prio. Faisal now all-inning.
I might be able to get this kill. Orange might still be available, but Niles didn't use it. Ends up walking away underneath the tower. Sub 100 HP and with confidence. This is the Niles that we've come to grow and love. And Faisal, very confident himself going for that.
It's so brutal. Faisal, if he waits just a second longer, he's going to get 50 Fury and get that Cull the Meek with the enhanced capabilities, and it would have been a kill onto Niles. Unfortunately, just bites the bullet a little too early and is unable to find that solo kill. Would have been so huge for him to get that to put him even further ahead in this lane. Looks like Perry's coming through to help out in that facet. Herald is being placed, and it will probably get this charge off to at least establish a couple plates for Perry. But it could have been so much more had this been... You know, it's one of those things where, yes, overall, it's a good play. It could have been better.
It certainly could have, and the fact that Niles is able to keep that turret from going down even after being chunked out in that way is absolutely huge for Maryville, and may just give them the opportunity to not just hang on in the top side, but to get their play going in the bot side as well, because they did see Perry up towards the top lane, and now they've got Shady and Auto Orange on an invade, and maybe even a gank. Shady not quite going for this just yet, as there was a little bit of miscommunication between him and Odd Orange that ultimately leads to this not being a very beneficial turret dive.
Well, you know, they still got Leo's flash, and on an immobile mage in the mid lane, I will take that. Again, yes, could it have been better? Most likely, but they get the flash and they get out to safety, so overall, not the worst situation. And we have got Drake spawning here in just... well, it's actually already up, so no flash on the mid laner is certainly going to be a bit of a hindrance as EGP are looking to take back control of this river, something that has been fairly difficult for them setting up around these objectives. Right, they'll have currently been out on top for the most part in this facet, but looks like they've just been able to walk in by force, and this four-man powerhouse is going to be able to take themselves their first objective in the bot side of Summoner's Rift.
Crucially, Daption just being able to clear out vision immediately beforehand gets EGP not just the dragon, but allows Faisal the opportunity to finally clean up that tower in the top side on this Renekton. Still relatively comfortable up against the Gangplank, hasn't suffered too much in the CS, and even for right now, does leave Renekton, actually, is the one in the driver's seat, as Gangplank's spikes come a little bit later, and even right now, this Renekton can have more impact in the skirmishes, in the team fights, what have you, just because of the early power that is inbuilt into his kit.
And I'm really intrigued by this GP build for Niles. I see a Vamp Scepter in his inventory, and I think we're going to be going full glass cannon. That Sheen could build into the Divine Sundra, could also be building into an Essence Reaver, and then an Immortal Shield bow for the Gangplank, and then we get some really intense crits coming from those barrels if you hit the RNG proc on it. Good play from Shady, gets him out to safety. But this GP getting later and later, if it is that Essence Reaver into Immortal Shield bow build, is going to be dishing out so much damage and is relying pretty much exclusively on that shield from the Immortal Shield bow to keep himself safe. So keep your eye out for Niles as we get later into this game, because you already know that GP going to be a large threat, a large presence for anybody to try and handle.
It's going to be very difficult to deal with this, however, equally so. Get Back does tank up a lot of damage off the ultimate from Leo, and as Get Back continues to farm up and purchase even more items towards that Chem Tank Akali, he's going to be even more difficult to kill. Leo really is not going to have a great time in this mid lane, because he's not really built to kill Get Back. If he can take down Azog, if he can take down Niles, that's great. Even if he can pump some damage into Odd Orange. But this Akali is going to be pretty much immortal unless Faisal and Perry are the ones dealing with it.
Oh, okay, good. Shuriken Flip gets him out to safety. And something that we did get to see down on that bot side, just a little preview of, is Azog kind of bullying out Sketch right now. Just has that CS lead of about 10. Able to burn the TP of Sketch as well, so he doesn't get too far behind. There's a slight experience lead for Azog. It's not currently amounting in a level at all, but if we see some more plays around the Rift, it could end up sort of snowballing into that. 14 minutes in here, dear. We are 2-2 in our kill score, but it is EGP with that top lane turret that have the gold advantage. And for them, it's going okay here. We've got a Drake apiece. We still have those concerns that if they get engaged upon here, that their answers are sort of difficult to find. But with that little bit of a lead, Maryville, they've shown that they're being fairly tentative. They've shown that they have the respect, at least, to not completely force into EGP. That last dragon, a bit of an example.
Perry, however, on a bit of a solo mission, is going to get caught with not nearly as much respect. Fortunately, Maryville, recognizing they don't have enough vision in the river to take the fight, aren't going to take advantage of it. But we, from our bird's eye view, know that that was very, very risky for Perry and could very well have led to his death. His Get Back pops up into the top side, now completely fearless on this chem tank. Akali gets to clear out a wave and honestly stay much safer in the longer lane than Niles would have been able to over by the river. Now swapping back over to the mid lane, however, it is time for Get Back to go on the chase. Leo getting slowed up by the ultimate here, has already taken one charge of the perfect execution, takes a second, and Get Back takes basically no damage.
Turbo Chem Tanker Carly, ladies and gentlemen, you have to ban this. Nice setup from Niles here. He puts the cannon barrage down, and that's all that is needed to allow Get Back to get in. Really good spacing on the Akali as well. Puts himself behind the Syndra underneath the turret. It is in a little bit more of a dangerous position, but recognizing there's no, he's able to get away with it, and means that he's able to find that solo kill and uses R2 in a good angle and sets himself up for it to get out from underneath the turret.
The worrying thing about Maryville, especially with the power of the Akali that you and I have been talking about this entire game, now that it's built up to the point that it is relatively tanky, this Cannon Barrage plus Akali combo is deadly. And honestly, sometimes you won't even need the Cannon Barrage. You can walk in, pick off a squishy in the side lane, and retreat completely unpunished. It'll start to slowly but surely push the gold in the favor of Maryville, and even push the side lanes, the whole map dynamic, over towards where Get Back can be the one controlling it.
And that could be a really big turning point here in this matchup between the two mid laners. Wherever they end up facing, it really does go to show you that Akali's going to have the run of things.
Shady having the run of things inside the jungle as well, brings Odd Orange with him. Odd Orange hasn't had the chance to do, I would say, too much aggressive ganking that we know that he likes to this game, but is making up for it with the backup of Shady being able to at least get some additional vision down on the bot side, perhaps benefiting Get Back soon, as Faisal, not exactly a diveable champion at this moment, but we'll see what happens, especially with Dragon coming up pretty soon. Odd Orange, though, going to get interrupted there, uses the Lantern to get out and simultaneously dodge the Scout of the Week, but this fight around the Dragon, I'm wondering whether Maryville take it.
They do have TP on Niles. They've got this option to just port down the Gangplank. He doesn't have Cannon Barrage, so that will be his sort of only help to the squad, and I honestly don't mind them sacrificing this. There are top camps to take. There's an outer turret in the top lane that's going to be funneling more gold into your Gangplank in the late game, who's going to be, again, an absolute menace. It is that Immortal Shield bow, so you expect to see just absolutely absurd crits coming out from this guy. He's not going for a Bruiser-esque mythic at all. This is raw damage from Niles, and he's banking on his own positioning, his own skill and mechanics to keep himself safe. Yes, he's got fleet footwork, but that's about it.
Must be nice to be Niles and be able to just rely on the fact that you can and probably will outplay your opponents. That's definitely the benefit of having him on your team as Maryville. They get all of the early game setup they've already paid a lot of attention to. Shady constantly roaming, and just the X factor that they've got up in the top side, but we cannot ignore EGPs either. They've all hit their crucial mythic breakpoints at this point, and they're moving up towards second items, and I'm really excited about this Bruiser combo. Perry Faisal inside of these team fights could be really big if only Maryville would actually take a team fight.
Yeah, and at the minute it's not in their interest to do so. They're still just farming up CS leads, still farming up advantages in their side lanes. Niles has been able to find one, and At the moment, that is to their own discredit, because EGP, they want to take some team fights. They are searching for something. They are charging down this mid lane. Satchel plus Herald, a lethal combo. They find 2 turrets in the mid lane, whilst Maryville, they take the bot lane tier 1. But outside of that, that's just a massive Herald play for EGP. A huge gold advantage now in their favor from that.
Like, please God, fight us. We just took your tier 2. Somebody do something. But Maryville are refusing to for right now, relying on that wave clear from Niles. EGP, they get away with a little bit more in the jungle camps as well, and continue to pull ever so slightly ahead in the gold. But as long as Maryville refuse to play their game, Maryville will continue to scale up and ultimately start to twist this game in their favor, especially when we consider the amount of damage they're going to have.
Soul should be
Maybe
okay
getting
here.
caught out. Oh no, the slice! The dice actually takes him out over the wall, but he has to invest the flash as well. Dominus still up and ticking away, but ultimately it is the cannon barrage as Niles goes, alright, fine!
That's the worst feeling, and there may be more here. Get back looking for fights.
Should be able to take this pretty confidently as well. Not a lot of damage can be dealt to this Akali, but now in the middle, 3 members. Might that change? He ends up dealing a significant chunk over to Sketch, finally investing the flash himself, but does get finished off much like his predecessor with Perry on top of Azog right now. We're going to get another AD carry falling as auto for auto trades Azog for a Sketch, and Perry gets to jump forward onto Odd Orange, knocking him up, taking him out. Triple kill going over to Perry, and EGP finally get their fight, but they may have extended it too far. Niles already gets the barrel off, and while Perry is desperately trying to take this fight, there's a teleport coming in. Faisal gonna try and hunt down that last remaining member, see if he can get shady, but EGP barely come out with that team fight win.
That's 4 kills for the Xin Zhao. That is not a good look. It is EGP who come away with the win in the team fight by a single kill in their favor. And after Faisal gets caught out here on the top side, 1 ward over the wall is pretty much all that it spells is asked for. And as you mentioned here, that first slice going wide actually sets him up for failure. And despite him doing his literal best efforts, that's a feels bad, man. Now we've got team fight number 2, Electric Boogaloo here. One that Maryville have got a numbers advantage for, but EGP do such a good job at splitting up their members and taking small skirmishes in better numbers scenarios. Get back for this entire time is essentially in a 3v1, and down here on the spot side, Leo unfortunately does get soloed out by the GP, who we're expecting to be that present threat. But Perry is just free hitting onto everybody this entire time. Finds himself, I believe that's his second, and able to jump onto Odd Orange quite happily to find a third. The Xin Zhao is not to be trifled with. We're at that mid-game peak where he can really dish out the damages, that pinnacle of Xin Zhao. He'll have gone back and picked up his Sterak's Gauge. This is Perry in his absolute element for the next 5-10 minutes or so before we get to see Azog really take off.
Yeah, this window for Xin Zhao has been so extended because of this fight. Now with the 5 kills, Sterak's complete, working on that third item as well, is likely to be, I want to say continually, even more difficult to deal with, and should unlock this next dragon in the favor of EG Prodigies. Still confident in their team fight, still having that vision around this river. Their only concern has to be the mid lane tower being taken away from them.
And just stylistically between these 2 junglers as well, Orange, a much more aggressive player looking for those plays. In the early stages, it didn't pan out, it didn't pay off. Perry was able to sit back and farm up just a little bit more. It's now an entire item up over his counterpart, and yes, that is in part due to those 4 kills that he just received. But coming down to this Drake, we have to wait and see who's going to be able to come out on top. There'll be a decided advantage between the junglers, but that top lane matchup still heavily Maryville.
Laura Depton's been caught out though, and he's the only tool away from this engage from Maryville. Now with Get Back jumping right back in, however, he gets blown up as he walks right into Perry, and melee range of the Xin Zhao is not where anyone wants to be. Niles setting things up for the moment, wants to try and take a fight in the river. It is a 4v4, but you gotta land that barrel combo, and I'm very curious as to whether it'll connect. EGP are playing with a lot of respect right now, and as the barrels explode, so do the chances of Maryville contesting this river fight. Faisal, no Dominus, but complete control over the river vision.
Oh, they almost caught Sketch there, nobody there to follow up. And they lost the support for the mid laner, and Maryville know that at the end of the day, they're not going to win a fight with those numbers set up. It's a little bit more difficult for EGP to walk in and face check. Their wards just aren't there because their support's dead. but they're overall able to walk on forward, just use their sheer force of fighting power to get into that Drake and get themselves Soul Point now. Mountain Soul versus this Maryville composition is obviously going to be very nice, as they're going to be consistently trying to dive onto you, and even if they're looking to try and find some side lane action. Adaption?
Oh no.
Okay, he was. It's fine. There was a world where he face checks that and is in a lot of peril, but actually Orange wasn't even in the brush, so we'll have to wait and see. Niles should be fine here. There's nobody for a long time.
Adaption is the one that really has to be worried. If you're going to go on that engage, Rakan is not the one that comes out favorably in the trade. Does spot Niles, however, and with a little bit of mutual respect, they'll both back off. Vision control for EGP now being shifted over to the top side, with, of course, the vision that we saw laid down that ultimately saved Adaption from a second death, but even more so being placed around this Baron around the mid-20s. EGP may just be looking to use that strength with Perry to get themselves another big objective. Hey, Zon,
Oh.
what? If full
Okay,
sending it in the backline? All right. Zanyas is down.
I like it here. This is the sort of new age Kai'Sa build, I suppose, here. We've got W Max coming out from the Kai'Sa. Expect Crown of the Shattered Queen to be his third item. And it just adds on to his ability to dive. It adds on to the Pope from this composition as well, that, you know, they're setting up with things like GP barrels and then Void Seekers as well. Their poke around objectives isn't particularly great. So good to see this adaptation from the build, obviously, for those that don't know. Nash's Tooth in its own right gives you evolved W, which means that you're not more than frequently able to hit a lot of skill shots on that cooldown when it is evolved. Puts you into a really good position with a lot of reduced cooldown. And it's good to see here that Get Back, he's got his health in check.
Yeah, when asked
not just in game.
Go-to gamer snack was, he said, snacks are lame. This guy's got time for nothing but League of Legends, and right now, well, he's been getting plenty of time to farm up. Faisal not so lucky, being chased down by Niall. Stun comes out, but Faisal may still go down, flashes away under the tower, and that is in a 1v1 in the side lane. This Renekton's days may very well be up.
Yeah, look at the build, though, from Niles. He's got 3 completed items already. We talked about this build path being incredibly squishy. This is the build path that AD carries dream of, and he gets to take it on GP in the top lane. He's reached his Exodia of damage items. If he hits a crit, he kills people in a very short amount of time, and at 60%, obviously more likely to than not. This is a sort of style for Maryville that they've been piloting very well this game. They've gone for this 1-3-1 setup, and you can see perfect time to observe how closely knit this 3-man band is going through and collecting vision. The last thing you want is somebody to get caught out on their warding adventures and open up a numbers advantage. But the 3-man have been moving through so tightly, so coordinated to collect these resources to shut down that lead between the junglers, and now Leo is the one in trouble.
Adaption really taking one for the team right now, trying to get a little bit of vision right back, contesting Maryville in the slightest, and Perry as well, doing his part over by the river, actually gets himself the pink ward and should be able to get out to safety, with Azog not connecting on that Prey Seeker. Doesn't end up being able to use the killer instinct. Maryville back out of the top side. Plenty of space gotten back for EGP, but the game extending does still give you crucial gold, crucial time as Maryville, with the hyperscalers not just being in the top side.
And right now, they can take pretty much any fight they desire if Niles is there, because he is just so far ahead of his counterpart. And even if he wasn't, GP at this stage is just going to be a monster. And I can't tell you enough, and I know I keep mentioning it because it's important, it's crucial to who you need to be looking at in these team fights. He's 2 levels up over anybody on his squad. He is absolutely primed and prepped to be the carry for this team. He's 2 levels up over anybody in the game even here, in exactly the position he wants to be, setting up for this dragon in about 50 seconds to find the team fight that Maryville have been looking for honestly, not that long at all. They've been heavily focused on their split push, but if EGP find their engage, it is going to be Niles that they need to look for. Your eyes have to be on Daption, potentially on Firesol and Perry as well, to try and shut down this GP in whatever way possible.
Yeah, as long as you can get on top of him, I think the theory is that you're going to be okay, but even that, especially with Get Back all up in your business, is questionable. As waves get traded back and forth, EGP, they're looking for their own fight, but Get Back with so much safety should be able to get out just fine. Quickness does get popped, and Daption continues to search for Get Back, but
just Shirelias.
doesn't actually find him. Just the Shirelias, yeah.
So he still has quickness for this team fight, but Perry may well win this. Get Back needs to commit.
It has to invest something. The flash will do it. No perfect execution used, and it keeps Get Back in the running for the fights later on. But now EGP are going to take the engage likely around this dragon. Niles has shown up, however, and it is a 4v4. Smite goes over to Odd Orange. Lantern takes him out. There's the quickness that we were looking for. But Daption gets instantly hooked. Has to pop the Zanyas. Hasn't stunned anybody just yet. And Niles already having used the Orange. Now it's Perry right on top of him. Popping the Crescent Guard. It is Perry against the Worlds. He jumps on top of Azog. Finishes him off. Turns his attention onto Niles. But he can't quite get the kill.
Get
and
back
now
here.
with this Pirate ready to go. Faisal sitting up in front of Get Back. Still, you will have Sketch burning down, but Faisal now the one against the world as Leo tries to peel for him. Doesn't get that scat of the week though, and now ultimately goes down as Get Back and Niles clean up.
Oh, it's such a good fight from Maryville. They come away with the Ace, the Dragon, and 5 kills as well. A beautifully executed fight all off the back of Shady, stifling the engage from EGP beautifully. They pick off Daption before the fight even begins and set themselves up exquisitely for that skirmish. They're going to be able to take the bot lane tier 2 and set themselves up nicely to move their vision up toward this top side rather. There's a lot of time now for Maryville to focus their efforts on this Baron. Niles still has the TP. He can stay in bot lane if he wants. This is that setup for the play. Notice they take this Drake before Leo is even anywhere near, before Perry can get into Smite. And that hook, the flay as well, perfectly timed. Again, just so strong. And then they find the hook onto Niles, or the charm, the stun rather. And it looks like they're maybe going to turn it around. Perry goes huge in the backline. Unfortunately, this GP just a little too massive. This entire, and then look at this top side. Get Back, he's just running rampant. Sketch has about 150 HP the last time he gets touched by damage. The Sakali build does not take any prisoners. It takes him down as well. And then the 2 solo laners of each squad going head to head. Unfortunately, at this late stage, the Akali with the Bruiser S build and Niles with 3 items is just far too much.
Yeah, and it is just a series of, oh my lord, really painful plays.
Where are you?
That is another one. This time, we do get to see the 1v1 between the Rakan and the Gangplank, and surprise, surprise, it doesn't go to the Rakan, likely spelling the story of a lot more to come for Maryville.
Niles hasn't bought yet since that last fight. He's still sat on his 3 items with the Executioners. He's going to go back and buy a full thing. Maryville are probably on this Baron right now as well. TP ready for the GP. He's already expending it, and with no support to face check these wards, EGP are in trouble.
Perry can't really commit to the fight in the Baron pit either. Has to be peeling for his backline, and Get Back may very well go down, but the Baron has already gone to Odd Orange. Big shutdown goes to Perry, but this is in Zhao. Now is really, really struggling. He's strong, but he can only do one thing at a time, and that's where we see the weakness of it.
Oh, brutal for Get Back right there. Overall, right, Maryville, they get a kill, or they get 1 kill taken away, and they get the Baron. Overall, it is still incredibly worth, but they don't have their Baron on one of their split pushes. And also, Get Back, Shuriken flips toward the Lantern. The second Shady looks to try and put himself, or the second Shady moves out of Lantern range. So it's a little bit of miscommunication there, whether he can make it to that Lantern or not. But still, overall, a very strong, positive play for Maryville. And as you can see there from the graphic from Macro Hard, that Maryville, they turned this game within a very small space of time, about a minute and a half, and they were, sat about 1,000 gold down, and then all of a sudden exploded this game.
So now we're in a position where Maryville, after spending most of the game in a gold disadvantage, now finally have the Baron on 4 of the members. They've got some really big hyperscalers. From here, how can they take this and actually turn it into a winning game for them?
They have 3 turrets on the outside of the base, and I think that those are objective priority number 1 here. Economy turrets, as I like to call them here, they all give you some fairly decent gold toward the team. And when you have the Baron as well, it's sort of the one counter to Ziggs. That's the reason that mid-tier 1 still stands, is that Ziggs has just sat there, wait cleared for 20 minutes or so. But EGP, they have priority control in the mid lane, and they're going for the base right now. This is a base race between Maryville. They've got Baron on the top side. And Get Back's going to have to run some real interference here. Without a wave, it looks like EGP are going to have to concede. But they've already got an inhibitor. So for EGP, not too bad so far. Let's see what Maryville get in response.
Yeah, it's a trade that honestly may not look the best at face value, but for EGP is finding some sort of win in a situation where they had no right to any. Perry looking for Get Back right here. I'm actually not sure who wins this 1v1, even though Get Back is up a level. Perry looks like he wants to find out, as does Get Back, chasing each other down. And surprisingly, it's because Get Back has a little bit of backup on the way, even as Perry tries desperately to fight him off. This just is not an even fight. Perry may still get this. The wind turns into lightning. And Get Back goes down. Perry now with another 1v1 that turns into a 1v2 and likely a 1v3. Azog committing the ultimate to pick him off. But EGP, they get that nice little style kill as well as the inhibitor tower. They lose an inhibitor for it, but it isn't the worst thing in the world. They are keeping themselves relevant.
How broken is Red Smite, by the way? Like, he used it twice in that fight. Get Back kited out the first one beautifully. Didn't expect the double charge Red Smite to come through to hand the fight in the favor of Perry right there. Again, really nicely dueled out between the two of them. A nice respect to see them go full force for it. It does give Perry his GA and opens up Xin Zhao to a lot more tanky capabilities. Unfortunately, though, it means you don't have your jungler open when the Drake spawns. And naturally, you would say that gives Maryville an advantage to secure the objective. Their issue is they've got absolutely no vision, particularly in the river. They can see a lot of stuff in the bot side jungle of EGP. The river itself, completely dark.
Still a lot of really good data for them, though. They know that Perry isn't here just yet, and it makes checking this river a lot safer than it would otherwise have been. With Shady and Azog able to walk in, Maryville right the wrong of not having vision, and Get Back now thinking about jumping in on that flank. Well, he doesn't get the kills just yet, but he does end up buying enough time for Perry to be revealed going towards the top lane to clear out some of the minions. So Dragon ultimately going to go over to Maryville, and the game continues to slip further and further into their favor.
We're teetering a little bit on a knife's edge right here. We're at the point now where Niles is dead.
Lord.
Unfortunately, steps a little too far forward. Sketch, perfect satchel, sets him up and just takes him down, right? Niles has the flash, doesn't respect that if I get satcheled back here, I could be in a lot of trouble, and that could be the kill that breaks open a large window here for EGP. Niles is going to be a large source of this Maryville squad's wave clear, and 3 people charging up through the mid lane right now. They've got TP available on the Ziggs. They can break open something here. The inhibitor likely to fall once again. And this is the point where Azog, yes, your poke is pretty strong on this Kai'Sa right now, but don't know how much he's going to be able to defend against when EGP, they're going for the game.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, you can take a fight. You do not want to give up time without Niles, but Perry gets stunned up in the front line. He gets to recommit, helping out his team against Get Back and Odd Orange. Get Back stays alive, ends up getting out to safety, but Perry in the front line is just immortal. He's tanking up both Shady and Azog.
They're taking the base.
Jumps right past him with Perry, Leo, and Sketch, though, finally focusing on this base. The Nexus ends up falling, and EG rob Maryville of a game that was slowly but surely set up in their favor.
And that is the power of an LCS organization. It feels like one misstep, one slight overextension from Niles, and they lose the game. Those are the types of mistakes that haunt you. Those are the situations that you feel incredibly bad about. But oh my word, EGP, they just put their foot to the throat right there, and they capitalize their ability to spot the smallest misstep. Sketch, with that satchel charge, literally wins them the game.
It was incredible how quickly the game turned, and it was because everything from the early game was set up on these very small differences between the players, between information especially, that went in the favor of EGP more often than not. Their vision control, and honestly, despite having gone down a few times, that Daption's ability to really make sure that they were set up with as much knowledge as possible going into fights, and even going into picks like that, let them walk away with that win, and they looked good doing it. But the thing is, so did Maryville, so they may just find themselves a win upon our return. In the meantime, though, as EGP found themselves a pretty nice leg up in the series, you too can find yourself a leg up in gaming. If you're looking to upgrade your gamer gear, you can look no further. Start your 2022 off right with official Unified Esports merchandise brought to you by Skulls. Hoodies, joggers, jerseys, armbands, and a lot more coming soon. You have skill, now get the swag. Skulls.com/collections/unified has everything that you know. Everything that you need. Gear up, game on with Skulls.